Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Something Newsy. My name is Kaitlin Clapinski. I'm the editor-in-chief here of the Mesa Press, and I'm here with.
I'm Thomas Manor. I'm a staff writer at the Mesa Press, and I mostly stick to the opinion articles.
And I'm James. I'm a staff writer at the Mesa Press.
Yeah, so today's topic, we will be discussing kind of how COVID-19 and the pandemic shifted perspective on higher education and kind of world perception of how we view education and higher education as a whole. So I was recently reading an article on Twitter. It showed up on my like explore page. I don't know what that's called on Twitter, but and it was talking about how a bunch of colleges are being sued by their students for charging the same tuition prices for in-person classes, even though they were online. Like the tuition didn't change. So I did a little bit of digging, and I saw that the Union Tribune did an article in October talking about how the University of California and San Diego State, USD, University of San Diego were all being sued by students. And I couldn't help but wonder, if I was a student paying for 4-year tuition at a college, would I be upset if I was paying full tuition to take basically classes on Zoom? I don't know if I would go as far as suing, but I think I would be pretty upset. What about you guys?
Yeah, I totally agree. With online learning, it's definitely a lot different from the traditional in-class learning. So I think certainly there should be a different rate for something like that. And certainly I personally wouldn't be going to a four-year university and paying full price if it was all online.
Definitely. What about you, James?
I completely agree. I think that having the same price in tuition is not right when it comes to you're not getting the full experience as you would in person. And like you said, you're basically getting taught over Zoom. You don't have the experience of being in a college with what comes with it and just actually on hand tools that you learn at a four-year university or a community college. I find it quite unfair, but I would also wouldn't. I also think too that I wouldn't think they would sue, but I mean, I also understand why they would to get their point across to how frustrating it can be.
Right. It definitely kind of sets a precedence, like as students, we're not going to stand for feeling like we're being overcharged for something that, we're not even getting the full experience out of. And I think, as colleges continue to price tuition extremely high, we kind of start to think like, is this worth it? Is all the money I'm putting into this, going to come back to me in some way? And, I don't know if the world is kind of giving us that leeway. Like we have the room to spend $60,000 on tuition and then be jobless or work very minuscule starting position jobs that don't pay as much, and then those interest rates on your loans go up and you're just paying back loans for the rest of your life. And I think definitely the pandemic has kind of changed my perception on higher education to see it more as like from a business standpoint. Do you guys agree with that?
I think in a lot of cases, college certainly isn't for everyone. And I certainly don't agree with just the level of student loans that a lot of students do take out because, as you said, a lot of folks, they spend their whole lives paying them back off, and it's more of a predatory lending strategy because most 18-year-olds, they don't know what they want to do, and even if they think they know what they want to do, a lot of them end up with careers that have nothing to do with their college degree. So racking up tens of thousands of dollars worth of debt for something that isn't guaranteed and really isn't determined in advance is a little silly. And for a lot of people, just looking down the road, and college might not be for you at all. And a lot of students have the impression that they have to go to college in order to get a successful job, because that's what's preached to them all through elementary, middle, and high school. And so I remember the first time I went to college, which was years ago. Um, and then eventually I stopped going to college and I didn't graduate. I felt a lot of shame there's a lot of shame that came with that.
Right.
And had I known then, I mean, because at the time I was working, low end minimum wage jobs, but had I known then that I would have come out a lot better than a lot of people that I know did go to college, I wouldn't have been so concerned about it, and I certainly wouldn't have taken out the loans that I did at the time.
Thomas, what school did you go to before you went to Mesa, if I can ask?
I went to San Diego State.
Oh, okay. What was your major at State? And are you just taking classes now at Mesa just for fun, or are you trying to get like an associate's in anything?
It was mostly started just for fun.
Gotcha.
But at San Diego State, I was studying business administration, which after 2.5 years of doing it, I decided I really didn't like it that much. I always wanted to be a business owner at the time, and currently now I am. But now I'm just doing journalism because that's what I'm kind of interested in, but it's really just for fun. I'm not really expecting to get anything out of it as far as like a degree or anything. If I do, it would be solely because I do kind of want to go to law school, although I'm a little old for it.
James, did you go to school before Mesa? Is Mesa the first college you've been to?
No, I actually, I'm from Las Vegas, so I transferred from a community college where I'm from in Las Vegas called College of Southern Nevada. And like what we were saying, like, just racking up debt. And I mean, when I first started college, I mean, I was told, oh, you need to go to college, like, because my parents sort of like had that mentality, like, oh, you need to go to college. Once you get a degree, get a good paying job, and get the good job with the 401k and the nice house with the white picket fence, good old saying. And yeah, I basically got told that, and from the beginning, at first, like, I sort of just got put into it. I didn't know what exactly I was gonna do, because I traded my majors at least 3 to 4 times because I just didn't know what I want to do. And then over the years, I've learned to just do something that, instead of doing a career that just makes a lot of money, I've learned that you should probably do a career that will make you happy, and not have a job where at least it doesn't feel like a job, like you're happy about doing it. So I decided on my major in journalism because my passion is sports, and I figured if I can't play sports at a professional level, I can at least write about it and be involved in that environment. But I spent I know, sort of rambling on, but I started at CSN, College of Southern Nevada, transferred to Mesa, and I was already fully committed to journalism as my major. And just at that point, yeah.
Nice. I feel like I'm a little bit of an outlier because when I was in high school, I wrote for my student paper, and I knew I wanted to do journalism, but I kind of just felt like, you don't really look when you're little to be a journalist, right? Like, you don't pop out of the womb and you're like, my dream job is to be a journalist. Your dream job is all these cool stuff. You want to be a marine biologist, you want to be a fashion designer, whatever. And as I kind of rose through education, I saw such a heavy impression for STEM. And I kind of always felt like, okay, well, if I don't do a job in STEM, if I'm not a doctor, or if I don't have this job that's kind of high in the ladder, like a lawyer, stuff like that, then, it's not really a worthy job. People don't look at you highly. So I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I knew I liked journalism and I wanted to do it, but I was like kind of like caught in that crossroads. And James, like you said, like, you want to get that good job, that white picket fence, that the family of four with a dog who's perfect. And it's just kind of crazy how we're fed that our whole lives to get this high paying, beautiful job. And it's just kind of not the reality. And I knew I wanted to go to Berkeley when I was little. It's been my dream school since I've been in the 6th grade. And I'm so thankful that I get to go and I get to kind of like live that little kid dream. But I always knew that, I like to learn. I wanted to go to college. It really was like a no-brainer for me. And now that I'm here and now that I'm in it, I don't regret it. I still feel the same way. But there's definitely some holes and cracks in higher education where I feel like, kids kind of sink through, and it's totally fair that they do. There's no support system, mental health kind of gets drugged through the dirt. And yeah, it can be totally tough. But here is a random question that kind of I just thought of. When I talk to my friends who are in like, STEM or not in like a liberal arts major like journalism is, they kind of complain about their general ed requirements. Like my friend who's in bio, she wants to be a PA and she hates writing, which is fair. She's a bio major. She doesn't have to love writing, but she is taking a sociology class and she's like, these prompts are too deep. Like, I hate it. Like, what do you guys feel about like if you had to take like a science class to get your journalism degree and vice versa?
I've always had a negative opinion of like general ed classes. I don't think they're necessary. I do understand why most degrees require them, but in general, like I'm trying to think of a field, like if you're like you were saying, a biology major, do you really need to take 3 or 4 writing classes? Probably not. I think the idea of college should be to prepare you for a career that you will be successful in. But more so, it's about what it's more catered toward is having a well-rounded education. So that's why they throw in all the different subjects. But I personally think it could be done a lot better, and most people would have far less debt if they just took the courses that were pertinent to their degree.
Gotcha. I mean, I agree in a sense. I totally understand that standpoint, but it's weird because like, as a doctor, you need people skills. You know what I mean? You need to know how to talk to people. You need to know how to reflect medical academia into, layman's terms. You need to be able to tell a patient, you have this and this and this in a way that they can understand it. So I get why, like, obviously as a biology major, you wouldn't have to take a creative writing class, but I think they should kind of change curriculum to make like more specialized general ed requirements, like maybe like communications for STEM majors or something like that. James, what do you think?
I agree that some of the classes in a general education class is not like, I believe it's like, some of it's, I wouldn't call it useless, but I agree that some courses I don't think it's going to be any advantage for you to take it. Like you said, like taking a science class when you're a journalism major, it's like, yeah, you'll have those moments in a semester and a year where you're like, oh, why do I have to take this? It's so pointless. Like I'll never use this in my life. Like even like involving like math, like, oh, I don't know why I had to solve X when I have nothing to do with this. But it's like, again, I get it. They want to have the people want to have like a well-rounded education for everybody. So it makes sense. But then again, it's like ties sort of back to like the price of tuition. It's like, if it didn't cost so much, like that's just one thing that sucks, that if you have to take these classes, maybe they shouldn't be so much if they have nothing to do with it. But it's just how college works.
Right. It's definitely like there isn't like a black and white answer to these questions, which I think makes these discussions so hard because everyone's kind of like, well, I understand this and I also understand that. You know what I mean? So it's like, will we ever really see change if we're always in the middle? Like we obviously can't go to one extreme and another extreme, but can we like find a compromise with it? Like, you know what I mean? Like how can we move forward? And I think that a lot of students have that question now, challenging higher education and wondering, like, is my university going to get me a job? Like, am I ready to step into that career field? Do you guys think that, four-year universities or even two-year universities like Mesa, do you think they well prepare students for a career with, their alumni networks and everything in between?
I would say probably not. I know a lot of people who they have 4-year degrees and they have for years after they graduated, they struggled to get a job in the field that they were studied for, or they couldn't, they didn't really realize their dream job. And I'm 27 now, so I've been out of college for 5 or 6, 7 years, I think. And a lot of my friends who did end up graduating, some of them still, really don't have like a career that they're in love with and super proud of. Certainly not making the hundreds of thousands that they thought they would with a college degree. Um, and some of them are, but certainly I also have friends that didn't go to college and they're doing a lot better than some of the friends that did.
Right.
So for me, I think it really comes down to individuals. It's not really something that you can paint across with a broad brush. Uh, for me personally, I'm a really bad student, always have been. um, uh, but I'm a really determined person, so I'm able to go and just do stuff and turn nothing into something. And a lot of people, they aren't quite like that. They're really good students, but if you give them a stack of bricks, they can't necessarily build a wall with it. They're um so it really comes down to the individuals, I
I
think.
totally agree.
I agree to that too.
Yeah, like you'll have one student, like you said, who's the perfect student, can turn everything in, is great academically, but then, they might feel completely hopeless when they get out of school because that's all they know. They don't have interests, they don't have hobbies, they don't have passions, and it's who dreams of living in capitalism? You know what I mean? Like it's very interesting that we grow up and we're like, oh God, I can't wait to get a job and do corporate America. You know what I mean? And that's just kind of how we're programmed. And James, what do you think? Do you think four-year universities, two-year universities, do you think they prepare us for real world?
I think for some majors they do, but then others they don't. Like Thomas was saying that, like I know people also that have spent like 2, 4, maybe 5 years at a university, and they're like 2 years after they're getting their degree, and they still don't have a career yet. Like they're still trying to find them. But then also it's like some job requirements of positions, it's like even a master or a bachelor's degree isn't enough. So it's like you realize wasting 4 years, 5 years, maybe even longer at a college, and it's not good enough. And some have like, oh, you need 2 years of experience with this because maybe some universities or majors don't offer internships, or maybe it's hard to get one. And it's just, I don't know, it just feels like the standards keep getting raised, but yet it's not enough for certain people, I guess.
Totally. And like, oh my gosh, don't even get me started about the 10 years of experience for an entry level job. Like, how does that even work? How do you expect me to have, experience when I'm taking 6 classes at a time? I'm working part time so I can pay off my, loans and my debt and pay for school. It's just, the expectations for students, I think, have become too much. And it's just, I think, frustrating as students to have to, experience that and go through that. So on the topic of student debt, do you guys believe in student debt forgiveness policies? Why or why not? For me personally, I think we should just wipe all the debt away. I'm not good at like econ. I'm not like a business person. Don't ask me about that. But it's just like we're already in trillions of dollars of debt. Money is fake. There's literally Dogecoin, however you want to call it. Wipe the debt, but then redo the policies. Like we can't keep charging $80,000 for tuition and expecting things to change. Like something has to get regulated. And I think it would be super annoying if the government would have to step in to, private and public universities and have to be like, hey, we're cutting tuition at this certain price. Like, I think somehow students have to bring about change. What do you guys think?
I completely disagree. And I mean, I agree. I mean, I disagree with canceling student debt, simply because it is a loan and you do have to sign up for it, and you know what you're signing up for before you do it.
Right.
And I think student loans are really helpful for a lot of people. I don't think they're for everybody. I certainly don't think most college students are wise to take out student loans, especially, for a lot of the more expensive colleges out there. If you're graduating with $60,000 worth of debt for a career that really only pays maybe six figures, you're going to be in debt for a while. I was fortunate enough to stop going to college before I was able to rack up that much. But I certainly think that if, just like a car loan, for example, which is necessary for most people because you don't always have $10,000 or $20,000 saved up to spend on a car all at once. Regardless of what happens with that car, you still have to pay the loan. It's money that you borrowed from somebody else. What I do think, however, is that tuition should be far less expensive than it is. And part of that, I think, is due to government subsidies that go to public and private universities even, which gives them the capability to charge more for it.
Definitely. I totally see what you're saying. It just sucks because I think, the school system is predatory. I mean, like like you said, we pry on 18-year-olds who don't know what they want to do, tell them they have to go to college. Of course, they feel obligated to take out that loans, go to these big institutions like USC, NYU, the Ivy Leagues, and take out that much money. You know what I mean? It's like, how do we make this smarter? What do you think, James?
This subject's always like a wishy-washy one for me. I'm like on board with both sides. Like I agree with Thomas where it's like I don't agree that loans should be just forgiven because you do know what you're signing up for, and a loan, you do sign up for a loan and you have to pay for a loan. That's just how things work. Like when you buy a house or when you buy a car, that's just how it is. But I also agree that like tuition shouldn't be so much to the point where you're spending almost your quarter or even longer of your life paying it off. And some people are lucky enough in some situations to have maybe their parents or someone to help pay for it, but not everyone's so lucky. So it's like, it's really unfortunate that tuition prices just keep rising up and up. And it's just like maybe if the prices weren't so much, maybe getting student debt paid off wouldn't be so much. Then again, I agree that if you do sign up for a loan, you do sort of know what you're asking for. So you know what you signed up for. So it's like you do have to pay it off because it's just like other things in life that you choose to do.
Right. It's totally a tough situation. For me personally, I got into both Berkeley and NYU, and NYU has a stronger journalism, I think, pipeline. than Berkeley does, and they have a stronger program. But it's like, I am not going to put myself under like that. There's just no point. There's no reason. They're both good schools. Any school is a good school. You know what I mean? But it's just like, why would I do that to myself? You know what I mean? Even if I could afford it, I don't even know if I would, go to NYU and do that. So
And oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I don't necessarily think it matters all too much what college you go to, regardless of what you're majoring in. I mean, unless you're going to like Harvard or Yale, any college degree looks the same on a job application or on a resume.
Totally. It's just, who even knows with the job market right now and, how that even works. I'm not even there yet. I'm not even going to think about it.
In my experience, it doesn't matter. In most cases, I mean, there's obviously some careers that I have been rejected for because I don't have a degree, but most of the jobs I've held in my lifetime, they required a college degree, and I put that I don't have one, and they still hired me.
I think jobs now too, agreeing with your point, I think they kind of look for more individual spirit and passion than they do college degree, because they kind of see that the system is flawed. So I think they are like the job market is shifting and in student favorability. They know that if you are going through the application process of a job, you're going through interview stages, you want that job, regardless of if your degree is in it or not. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. And as an employer myself, I certainly have never turned somebody down because they don't have a college degree. For me, it's just a blip on their resume. I'm looking more for like their work experience and what kind of person they are overall. So I think, I mean, to me, a college degree on a resume doesn't say a whole lot about you. It just says that you were able to pay for 4 years of classes and go to those classes and pass them, which
Definitely.
from my personal experience in college doesn't really mean a lot.
No, it doesn't mean much at this point, especially on Zoom.
Yeah.
Closing statements. If you guys could go back to yourself in high school, what would you do differently, college-wise? What would you say to yourself? And what advice do you have for students out there who may feel lost in this process?
Well, again, I would stress to myself, my former self, and also other students, that college isn't everything. It's really a small sliver of your life, and it might have some impact on it, but really, if unless you're planning on being a doctor or a lawyer or something that really requires a college degree, you should really consider what your options are. And I think kind of the disservice that high schools do for students is they stress that how important it is to go to college and to graduate college. And for a lot of students, that doesn't really make a lot of sense, but they don't know that because they weren't given all the options. That was when I went to high school, that was the only option. You're going to college, and that's the only way you're going to get a job ever. If you don't go to college, essentially, the picture they painted for us was you're going to be living on the streets most of your life.
Definitely. James, what would you say to your past self?
If I think about it, I would probably have told myself to actually think about college. I mean, it's because before I just sort of was focused just pass high school, see what happens then. Because I've also said in my head like college isn't everything at like a young age, and some moments I think like, oh, I should have took college a little bit more seriously. So maybe that's one thing I can tell myself. Like since I did end up getting myself into college, I'm like, oh, maybe I should have took it more seriously. Maybe take a different route. Maybe try to explore options at university from the start of getting out of high school. But then it's like also that getting told that you're not going to make it in life, or you're not going to achieve like the ultimate goal unless you have a college degree. It's just, I've learned that that's not the case. Like, I know people that don't have college degrees and they make 7, 8 figures, and it's just all about the person and determination, what you have towards what you're passionate about. And I would tell myself too is like, figure out what you're passionate about, and if you really, really love it and passionate about it, just set yourself up for it, focus on it, and go to it.
I think what you said about passion is so important, because if I was going to go back to, my past self, who isn't, it's only a few years away being young, but I would say just, explore different things. I found that, in my 2 years at Mesa, I've been able to take advantage of, volunteering and just kind of like exploring different things that I'm passionate about, whether it be, politics, fashion, food, whatever it is. I just think there's so much stuff for us out there, and there's no reason for us to be pipelined into one thing, one major that defines our complete interest or completely who we are. I think, humans are multifaceted, we're multidimensional. There's so much more to us than, just what our degree says. And I think, being able to discover that in yourself and find different things that you like is so important. So that's all the time that we have today. Thank you all for listening. And yeah.